This is It's a Mystery Podcast. Let us tell you a story. Hello, mystery readers. Welcome to episode 75 of It's a Mystery Podcast. I'm mystery author Alexandra Amor, and today my guest is Ellen Byron, and she's reading from a new book today, writing as Maria DeRico. And as you'll hear Ellen explain in our interview, that name was actually her nonna, her grandmother's name, and so she's sort of honoring her grandmother. And the other really cool thing is we touch on the fact that Ellen's really going back to her own roots writing these books, and she's got an incredibly interesting story that you'll hear about one of her grandfathers who was, she thinks, sort of a minor, is that quite the right word? Like a lower down member of the mafia years ago. And so you'll hear her explain. It's fascinating, really interesting. So as ever, you can find the links to the books and the people that I feature on the show in the episode show notes. So there are links there to this book, which is called Here Comes the Body by Maria DeRico. And anytime you want to find links or information that we've talked about on the show, you can just go to itsamysterypodcast.com, and there you'll see the list of all the episodes. And you can just click on the one you're interested in, and everything will be available there. And then Ellen was also on the show in episode 61. So if you want to hear about her other series, which is the Cajun Country Mysteries, set in Louisiana, you can go back and find episode 61 on that list, and you'll be able to hear her talk about that series of books. And this with Ellen's writing is really funny. We touch on the fact too that she has been an actress and she's been writing in TV for years, and she's a playwright, and she just has a really natural, I find, sense of wit and humor in her writing. And so the way that these podcasts work is I connect with the author, my guest, on Skype or something like that, and then I press record and we start recording the interview. And so I give the introduction, and then the guest reads from their book. And while they do that, I just really try to sit here at my desk where I'm sitting now as quietly as possible, so as to not interfere with the reading. And with Ellen, that was really hard because I kept wanting to laugh because her writing is so funny. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this reading from Here Comes the Body. So I'll leave it to you then, and thank you so much for listening. As ever, if you would like to support the show and be one of my co-creators, I think of my patrons as a community and as people who are helping me to create the show. You can go to patreon.com/It's a Mystery. And Patreon is Patreon. And also don't forget that you can get your 2 free mystery novellas from me at alexandraamor.com/library. And so until next week, I leave you now with Ellen Byron writing as Maria DeRico and reading from Here Comes the Body. See you next week. Ellen Byron's Cajun Country Mysteries have won an Agatha Award and multiple Lefties for Best Humorous Mystery. Her new series, The Catering Hall Mysteries, written as Maria DeRico, was inspired by her real life. Ellen is an award-winning playwright and non-award-winning TV writer of comedies like Wings, Just Shoot Me, and Fairly Odd Parents. But she considers her most impressive credit working as a cater waiter for Martha Stewart. Hi, Ellen. It's nice to see you again.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me back.
You're so welcome. Yeah, you were with us on episode 61, so it's a treat to talk to you again.
Wow.
So why don't we just dive right in? You're going to read to us from Here Comes the Body, which is the brand new Catering Hall mystery.
Right, and written as Maria DeRico, which is the maiden name of my real-life nonna, late real-life nonna. Nice. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Chapter 1. At 6:45 a.m., Mia Karina woke up to Frank Sinatra singing New York, New York from the alarm on her phone, a happy reminder that she was in Queens, not Florida, and no longer a person of interest in her adulterous husband's disappearance. Mia had only been back in Astoria a few days. She could have left the Sunshine State months earlier, but she'd chosen to hold her head high, despite the cloud over it, and retain her position as general manager for the Palm Beach branch of Corey Designs, a go-to destination for the uber-wealthy seeking ridiculously expensive leather goods. Luckily, a little notoriety had proved a good thing sales-wise, between her status as a person of interest in a salacious murder investigation and the whispered rumor that her father was a well-known mafioso, which happened to be true. Mia sold enough overpriced accessories to pay for a first-class ticket out of town when she gave notice. She yawned, stretched, and snuggled up to Doorstop, the sleek ginger Abyssinian cat sharing her pillow. Then she threw off the covers. Doorstop responded with an annoyed meow. "Sorry, bud," the 31-year-old, most likely a widow, said, grinning at the smoky blob of orange fur bearing its head under the covers. "Mama's got to get to work." Mia rolled off the blow-up mattress currently serving as her bed and scrambled to her feet. She noticed the birdcage on top of a still-to-be-emptied box and got a pang of sadness. Formerly the home of her pet parakeet Pizzazz, the cage stood empty of its resident. As she was leaving her Palm Beach apartment, she had been jostled by a crowd of local reporters, eager to make their bones by getting a departing comment from her. The cage door flew open, and Pizzazz, confused and scared, flew off. Mia delayed her flight home and plastered the neighborhood with flyers promising a hefty reward for the bird's return, but so far no one had reported a sighting. She padded through the empty second floor of her grandmother's two-family house into the bathroom for a shower, then pulled clothing out of her suitcase. A black pencil skirt and fitted jacket she paired with a silk turquoise top that brought out the blue in her eyes. Mia had learned from her boss at Corey that her crystalline orbs, wavy dark brunette hair, and pale skin made her a winter. Cool, bright colors flattered Mia. She'd also learned never to dress better than the customers, something she kept in mind while putting together an outfit for her first day of work at Bellevue Banquet Manor, a party venue surrendered to her father, Ravello Carina, by a gambler who couldn't pay his debts. Mia filled Doorstop's food and water bowls, grabbed her purse, then headed downstairs, a pair of black high heels in one hand. Elisabetta Carina, Mia's beloved grandmother, stood waiting in the home's small vestibule. Mia kissed Elisabetta on both cheeks as Hero, her grandmother's chubby terrier mix, barked protectively. "Hero, stai zitto," Elizabeth scolded in her native tongue, which she still preferred to English despite decades in America. Hero responded with an annoyed grumble. "Well, at least he likes Doorstop. He'll get used to me." Mia bent down to pet the mutt, who gave her a haughty glance, then succumbed to the affection. "I made you breakfast, the fried eggs and sausage," Elisabetta said. The 83-year-old was not one to let a clogged artery or two get in the way of her favorite fatty foods, much to her cardiologist's chagrin. "Grazie, but I've got time. I want to get to Bellevue early. Suss out the place." "Va bene. I'll put it in a container. You can have it tomorrow." While the thought of day-old reheated fried eggs might be anathema to the average human, Mia took it in stride. For the Carinas, wasting food was sacrilege. Elisabetta zipped up the jacket of her velour tracksuit, her daily uniform. Today's outfit was burgundy with navy trim. "I'm going on a power walk with the Army." Mia couldn't help smiling. The Army was a posse of Italian and Greek grandmothers who'd lived on the block for 50, 60, even 70 years, and power walk was a euphemism for gossipy stroll. "I'll see if anyone's giving away furniture," Elizabeth continued as she did a few half-hearted stretches to ostensibly warm up, "and maybe someone decided to turn their second bedroom into a sewing room." Sewing room was another neighborhood euphemism. It meant an ancient, dusty sewing machine squashed between boxes of half-broken Christmas ornaments and polyester clothes from the 70s that were too nice to give away. "That'd be great." Elisabetta hugged her granddaughter. "I'm so glad you're back. Ti amo. I love you, bella bambina." "I love you too, nonna. Ci vediamo stasera. See you tonight." Elisabetta left to meet up with her senior crew. Mia opened the Pick You Up rideshare app on her phone and tapped in a request, then put on her heels and stepped outside. Easter had just passed, but the tidy front yards of the brick two-family homes were still awash in pastel decorations and strings of lights shaped like rabbits, eggs, lambs, and chicks. No holiday went uncelebrated or undecorated on 46th Place. Competition to outspend and one-up each other turned the sweet little old ladies of the neighborhood into bloodthirsty competitors. Mia's own grandmother was the worst offender. When Mia was little, Elisabetta even roped her into doing undercover spy work. While Elisabetta delivered batches of her famous Pizzelle cookies to unsuspecting neighbors, her granddaughter would plead a need to use the bathroom, but instead sneak a peek at any decorations laid out in a spare room, later reporting as many details as she could remember to her eager nonna, who would then make sure to top them. A moving van at the far end of the block caught Mia's eye. Gentrification was starting to rear its upscale head in the neighborhood. She was furious when Elisabetta told her that real estate agents were intimidating elderly locals by implying they were losing their wits, then offering flyers for assisted living facilities along with their business cards. The block was an oasis of tradition and neighborliness, holiday decoration battles accepted, and Mia would fight to keep it that way. A silver older model Prius pulled up in front of the Carina home. Mia shook her head but marched down the stairs and got into the back seat of the car. First the airport, now here? You can't be the only pick-you-up driver in the area. The driver, Jamie Boldano, shrugged and smiled. Oh, let's just call it luck. Jamie, whose father, Donnie, was Ravello's boss, had the misfortune of being the sole intellectual in a family of mobster goombas. Determined to forge his own path, he'd embarked on a teaching career, but was now earning a master's degree in family therapy and ride-sharing to pay the bills. Mia and Jamie had grown up together and even briefly dated in high school. Mia wasn't the only Carina who wished she'd married Jamie instead of adulterer Adam Grosso. But Jamie, struggling to find himself, hadn't asked, and now Mia, burned by her marital disaster, had more interest in cold-fried eggs than in another relationship. Jamie followed local streets until they merged onto Grand Central Parkway. As they drove past LaGuardia Airport, Mia flashed on when she and husband Adam made their move to Palm Beach. Theirs was a whirlwind relationship that began during Mia's celebration of her 27th birthday with some girlfriends at Mingles, an aptly named Astoria hangout. Her friends were impressed when a 750-liter of Dom Perignon champagne was delivered to their table, courtesy of the gentleman at the bar. Mia was more impressed by the gentleman at the bar, who had the tawny blonde looks of a northern Italian and introduced himself as your future husband, Adam Grosso. At the end of the evening, Adam had helped a drunk Mia into a taxi, then jumped in with her. A hookup turned into a torrid romance, which turned into an impulsive wedding a month later during a weekend getaway in Vegas. Adam revealed to Mia that when they met, he was only supposed to be in town for a week before moving to Florida to begin work as a manager at Tutta Pasta, a popular Palm Beach restaurant. He'd extend his stay for a few weeks just to be with her. She rewarded him with her hand in marriage and relocation to the Sunshine State, much to her broken-hearted family's chagrin. Basta, Mia said to herself. Enough focusing on 4 years of my life I'll never get back. Like the saying goes, what was then, this is now. And now I'm in a car with Jamie, smart, kind, and cute. No, stop, basta. She pulled out her tablet and tried to focus. So, Jamie said, looking forward to today? Yeah, in a big way, Mia hesitated. But I'm nervous. I've never done anything like this. Neither has my dad. It has to work out. And I don't want him going back to his old job. I no offense to your dad or anything. Hey, no worries, I get it. It makes you feel better. I hear Ravello's doing a great job of running the place. Nothing seems to throw him, which is important when you're dealing with the biggest events in people's lives. Weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, they're all emotional, high-octane events that can cause as much stress as they can pleasure. I think that's your psych degree talking. Jamie blushed. The fact that Mia found this trait of his attractive made her blush as well. We're here, Jamie said, as he drove through a parking lot and pulled up in front of a nondescript building from the mid-1960s. Mia released a breath, and the unexpected sexual tension she felt dissipated. She looked out the window at her new home. Bellevue Banquet Manor was perched on a small outcropping of land squeezed between Flushing Bay and the parking lot that served its marina. Bellevue's glass-paned architecture was designed to take advantage of the views. Some scenic, some not so much. The catering venue was also adjacent to the landing pattern for LaGuardia. Nice location, Jamie said. You know, it has the same name as the mental ward in Manhattan. Yeah, we're not going to lead with that on the website. Mia shoved her tablet in her purse. Thanks, Jamie. See you later. You might, or you might not. Yeah, odds favor the former. Jamie shot her a slightly devilish grin and drove off. The son of Donnie Moldano might claim independence from his mobbed-up family, but that didn't mean he wouldn't occasionally take a page from their dicey book. Mia inhaled and exhaled a few times to quell her nerves. I can do this, she told herself. Still feeling insecure, she said it out loud, yelling at the park crowd surrounding her. I can do this! Go for it! Someone yelled back. Mia had noticed a delivery man sitting in the driver's seat of a UPS van checking his phone. Embarrassed, she returned the thumbs up he flashed her. Then she adjusted her skirt, pulled open one of Bellevue's heavy glass doors, and entered the grand foyer. A massive crystal chandelier dangled over the space, which, with its white walls and tile floor, was otherwise unremarkable, even bordering on dingy. The baseboards were scuffed. A faded triptych of a wedding from decades ago decorated one wall. A gilded plaster statue of Cupid did a valiant job of hiding a water stain. Mia felt deflated. She pictured a more grandiose venue, like the legendary Leonard's of Great Neck, with its ornate ballrooms and 20-foot chandelier presiding over a 2-story grand foyer. Then Mia looked past Bellevue's far less impressive foyer into a large banquet room. A wall of windows framed the view of Flushing Bay, where boats bobbed serenely at the World's Fair Marina's docks. Her spirits rose again. Despite the hints of shabbiness, Bellevue enjoyed a lovely location, much nicer than the flashier party palaces in the area. I can work with this, she thought. Mia was about to go look for her father when she was startled by a large rumble. 2 decorative urns filled with ferns began to vibrate. Her heart raced. What the? Don't worry, sweetheart. That's just a 737 coming in for a landing. Mia turned and saw Ravello Carino standing at the entry to the hallway. Ravello threw open his arms. Bambina! Dad! She ran to her father and disappeared into the large man's bare hug. Ravello Carino was built like an ancient growth oak tree, majestically tall and broad of trunk. Mia knew his imposing presence was the main reason Donnie Boldano anointed him head of the Boldano family's illegal gambling enterprise. It deterred participants from welching on their debts. Still, Ravello wasn't a fan of confrontation. He'd eagerly segue from intimidation to the challenge of running Bellevue as a legit business, much to his daughter's relief. Ravello released Mia. You look good. You feel good? He said this with a Queen's accent thick as a slice of hand-cut hard salami. Mia nodded. I like this place, Dad. There's a lot of potential. I think so, too. The room you were looking at is the Marina Ballroom. The Bay Ballroom is upstairs. Place needs work, but it's got good bones. You almost forget LaGuardia's there. Ravello pointed west, where the 737 that had landed could be seen lumbering down the runway toward the terminal. I'll give you the royal tour in a little. First, coffee. Mia followed her father up a glass-paneled circular staircase with a steel railing. They reached the landing, and Ravello threw open the doors of the Bay Ballroom, revealing a banquet table laden with breakfast treats. A banner above it read, Welcome, Mia! Surprise! The greeting was bellowed by a small group of unfamiliar faces, except for one. Ravello had hired Cami Dianopoulos, a neighbor who lived around the corner from Elisabetta, to help him coordinate events, with the proviso, put in place by Cami, that her duties would lessen once his daughter came on board. Cami ran up to Mia and gave her a hug that rivaled Ravello's in strength. You're here, I'm so happy. Now I can coast. Well, thanks so much for helping out my dad. I'm excited about working with you. But you working harder, right? Right. Mia extricated herself from the woman's grip and subtly massaged a bruised rib, while Cami checked out a reflection in a nearby mirror, patting a few stray hairs from her fluffy frosted dew back in place. She found her style in 1988 and stuck with it, to the point of ordering her favorite lavender eyeshadow from a website that specialized in locating discontinued makeup. Ravello put his arm around Mia's shoulder. Let me introduce you to the rest of the staff. He was about to do exactly that when the door to the room flung open. A slim woman with stringy black hair appeared, clad in a mini dress that looked like it was made from bright red ace bandages. She was pretty, but in a hard way. She pointed a finger attached to a tattoo-sleeved arm at Ravello. You, she said, her tone angry and accusing. Me what? Ravello seemed flummoxed by the intruder. You know what? The woman pulled a cell phone out of her tiny purse and held it up to him. Mia moved closer to her father. Dad, what's going on? Ravello responded with a confused shrug. The woman waved the phone in the air. Our date through meetyourmatch.com. What, do you think I was a freebie? Angie here doesn't do freebies. She pointed a long red lacquered nail at herself. You owe me. Mia was incredulous. She knew her father had barely dated since his marriage to her mother had been annulled 5 years earlier, but she couldn't imagine him resorting to a paid escort. Sweetie, I don't know what she's talking about, Ravello said. He looked embarrassed. I swear to Bible, I'd never seen her before in my life. Liar! The woman spit out the word. She took a step toward Ravello, who remained frozen in place. Either give me my fee, or I'll make big trouble. I know who you are. Oh, please, Mia scoffed. Everyone knows who he is. If that's your biggest threat, you need better material. The woman, still holding the phone, waved her arms in the air dramatically. I want my... A giantess wearing a chef toque stepped out of the group. Okay, we had enough of the crazy, sister. That's Guadalupe Cruz, our chef, Cammy, who'd been watching the odd scene with fascination, whispered to Mia. She was an army cook in Iraq. Guadalupe approached the interloper, then took all of a second to grab the woman and hold her under one arm like a football. She strode out of the room, her charge kicking and screaming to a stream of profanities. As you were, the chef called to the others as she disappeared down the stairs. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Cammy pointed to the buffet. Let's eat before the bagels get stale. A murmur of agreement followed by a rush to grab a plate. Ravello started to follow, but Mia pulled him back. Hold up, Dad. What was that? The mobster gave a helpless shrug. Mia, believe me, I have no idea. There are nut jobs all over the city. I guess one found her way to Bellevue. Well, this Bellevue, not the one in Manhattan, where she obviously belongs because she needs mental help. There was a loud buzzing overhead. Sounds like a turboprop. Must be the 910 from Syracuse on its final approach. Ravello detached himself from Mia and joined the others at the buffet. She frowned as she watched him pour a cup of coffee and chat with the others. She knew her father well. He was telling the truth when he said he didn't know the woman, but he was also hiding something. And it was never good when a Karina hid something.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Ellen. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. You're such a good reader. I mean, so fast. That must be, is that part of your TV background, do you think?
Well, I started as an actress.
Oh, okay.
I did improv for years. As that career didn't last very long. I kind of fell into writing. I wrote plays, and then I quickly segued. But for years, sorry, now I'm yawning because I took a lot of breath out of me.
Yeah, that's right.
But for years, I did comedy improv as I was writing and as I wrote plays and freelance magazine articles. And I actually did it for about 10 years until I did TV when I didn't have the time anymore to do the improv on the side.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, today we're recording this at the end of February. You released an article about Here Comes the Body,
Yes.
and mentioned that it's you're kind of going back to your roots, that you grew up in Queens and are familiar with that neighborhood. And I could really feel the flavor of the place as you were reading. So the neighborhood where Elisabetta lives and even the event venue, close to the airport. Has it been fun for you to write about Queens?
Oh, it's so much fun because I'm reliving, I moved out to California in 1990 to pursue my TV career, and I've always missed that aspect of my life. And so, there's so much. Where she lives, where Mia lives, is where my nonna lived. My nonna lived downstairs, and my aunt and uncle and their kids lived upstairs. So I literally am writing in my head, it's my nonna's apartment, and Mia's upstairs where my cousins lived, although the furniture is different. So when she walks from the Ditmars, the stop, at Ditmars from the subway to her house, it's the road, it's a path I walk to visit my nonna. Where she works is one of the venues that our cousins by marriage managed. It was the Grand Bay Marina. And it's now called something different, but it's where Jer and I had our New York reception because Cousin Polly still ran it by then. So the bakery, I actually use the real name of the bakery that we frequented, which is called Laguli, and it's still there, and it's been there since 1933, and still it's just it's very personal to me, but it's so much fun to write. Kind of like and have this affectionate look at how I grew up. We moved when I was 10. We moved to a suburb called Scarsdale, but until my family, the rest of the family, a lot of cousins and stuff ended to move out to the island or out to Jersey. But Nonna lived in Astoria till she died, and Tsitsi Rose and Uncle Henry lived there for years after.
Wow. Yeah, gorgeous. I happen to be writing about a neighborhood I lived in Vancouver for 23 years, and I totally agree. It's such a treat to use real places, and fold them into the writing. Yeah, that's awesome. So we got the sense there a little bit from that chapter that Mia's dad has kind of skirted on the edges of the law, shall we say. So was it fun to kind of write about a character like that who's who maybe crosses the line sometimes.
Well, he did time in jail.
Oh, okay.
He didn't skirt. He did.
Okay.
It's very, I keep it vague, but I did a lot of reading of, there was always. This is a very interesting fact about my life. And that's also my grandfather, not on the Italian side, on the Jewish side, disappeared in 1933, and he was low-level mob.
Oh.
And he actually was in jail. He did time in jail for embezzlement. And I found an ancient cousin once who told me that he appeared at his door once and basically was trying to shake him down a little with a couple of his associates, quote unquote, and then he disappeared. And my whole life we wondered what happened to him. And I only recently found out from my mother that my grandmother, when she went to look for him, and he was up in Boston at the time. They were from New York. He grew up in Brooklyn. And some of my research has shown that there was an area in Brooklyn of Brownsville, which was where the Jewish mob, kind of was born. Mm-hmm. And he lived only blocks from that and blocks from this candy store that served as kind of a front and a recruitment for some of the younger kids. And when my grandmother, and then I read a Meyer Lansky biography that said in the late 20s and early 30s, he spent time in Boston setting up a crew there. And I thought to myself, how many Jewish mobsters would there have been in Boston at the time? So I really have come to believe that my grandfather was either trying to be part of that or was part of it. And then I found out from my mother that when my grandmother went to look for him, because he never came back home, his what I called associates, and my mother said, what associates? They were gangsters. Told her she'd be lucky if he wasn't at the bottom of the river. So I'm guessing that's where he ended up. I did Ancestry to see if any, we always thought maybe he disappeared and started a second family. Supposedly money from the family business, which was import-export of food from, Italy and from Greece and stuff, it disappeared with him. They were never able to track him down, and no unknown relatives came up. So in a way, even though I'm writing kind of about, Italian mob connections, of which not in my immediate family, but there were always hints, In fact, one of the cousins, I remember we were at a family event. They had moved to Englewood Cliffs, home of Tony Soprano. Okay. And one of the cousins who was managing Astoria Manor at the time, my dad was having business problems. And Ralph said to my dad, Dick, if you need help, I got a guy for you. And it was literally I got it. His name is Joey Six Fingers Botchagaloop, and he can take care of your problems. It was straight. I remember I was so vivid because it was oh my God. I mean, we've heard these rumors, but, okay, well. And so, my dad thought about it and said, thanks, but I really appreciate the offer. But, I think I'll pass for now. But so, growing up with this kind of haunted by my grandfather's past, I kind of, imagine myself as Mia, Mm-hmm. I mean, my dad had a father who was a mobster, low level, but.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible. And so was it those family connections that motivated you to start this new series? Because when we last spoke, we talked about the Cajun Country mysteries.
Yeah.
So was it that motivated you?
I just thought, I think what motivated me was the thought, I have cousins who ran a catering hall, and what a great setting for a cozy mystery series if it hasn't been done. So I went to my, go-to website, cozymystery.com, where Dana has done the most brilliant job of just keeping track of mysteries and to see if anyone had already done that. And I did not find that. And I was a little nervous because it's an urban setting. But, the very few comps for that, except for Cleo Coyle, but her series has been terrifically successful, And some of the reviews, like there were great reviews on, Room of Required Reading and Drew's book Musings, and then Carstairs Considers, where, in that one, Mark Baker really talked about, how it, even though it's set in an urban setting, it really ticks off the boxes of a cozy series, which is what I went for. But I'll tell you a funny sidebar is that I describe, at one point during a draft before we, my terrific agent, Doug, sent this out, I described Astoria as, the block as charming. And Doug was like, he wrote back, he said, I lived in Astoria. There's nothing charming about it. So, it's a very kind of, now, of course, it's gentrified, but it's a very New York kind of working class area. And it's not, but it does have its own kind of charm in that way, New York neighborhoods. And it's very much a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So creating that sense of place, even without the word charming, you get the feel that this is an enclave and in the way a cozy neighborhood is. And people say, now I want to go to Laguli and buy cannoli. I'm like, so do I.
Exactly. Well, and I always think, too, that I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that within large urban centers, neighborhoods are like little villages unto themselves. I used to live in a neighborhood in Vancouver, and I walked everywhere. I didn't have a car, and there was everything. There was a library, there was a wine store, there was a grocery store, there was a bakery, restaurants, everything. That was the little village. Well,
and that's one thing I've always desperately missed about New York is that I lived on the Upper West Side, and I had more of a sense of community there than any place I've ever lived, and I lived there for years. And even I go back now, I literally go. I haven't lived there in 30 years, and I go into, Zingoni's on a block from my old apartment, and it's like the same guy was helping me then, helps me now, and, people go, hey, they saw me yesterday, and I really think you can create that sense of place, anywhere. You could probably set a cozy mystery in a low level security. What do they call it? Minimum security prison, and create a sense of place. And hey, Orange is the New Black.
Well, there you go. Yes.
It's hardly a cozy. They'd probably explode if they heard me describe it that way.
Yes. So. Exactly. And so before we started recording, just as we wind up here, you mentioned you're working on the next book, so you've already got that on the go, yes?
Yes, and right now, I hope the title lives. I think it will. It's called Long Island Iced Tina, and I love that.
I love that.
It's so much fun to write. I love writing both series. And back when I was writing plays, which I haven't done in far too long, but, my then playwriting agent said to me once, she said, you have two voices. You have a TV voice and you have a theater voice. And I think these series, I think Cajun Country, the Mysteries, I wrote that because writing prose allowed me to describe, the setting and the beauty and what I loved about, Cajun Country in Louisiana. I could really get into that. And that's, a lot of my plays took place there. Mm-hmm. And then, I wrote a play called So When You Get Married, which was inspired by asking my Italian grandmother to give me the money she'd saved from my wedding dowry as a down payment, as key money to get an apartment in New York. So breaking the news to her that as her oldest grandchild, I was getting an apartment and not a husband. And so I write more, in my TV voice, I think, this series.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, isn't that interesting? And so does it feel different as you're doing it, or do you notice that after?
It feels different as it's a little less poetic, a little less more like joke driven in its own way, and a little, their Cajun Country Mysteries have tons of humor, but I think it's a drier, more subtle humor. Mm-hmm. In this series, the characters are a little more out there. Like in the Long Island Iced Tina, there's a very wealthy family on Long Island, and they're just crazy. They're just that kind of like waspy, under the surface, crazy. It's like one character says, "Oh, you'll have to forgive, Spalding. He gets like this after a few drinks," and the other character, Mia's like, "It's 10 o'clock in the morning."
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll look forward to the next one. We should say that Here Comes the Body was released last week, so people can find that at all the different online retailers.
And brick and mortar.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's available in very, paperback, Kindle, paperback, ebook, Audible, I think. Yes, Audible.
Oh, good. Okay. You would be amazing reading the audiobook, but you didn't do that?
No. I'm sure they found someone who does a good job. Who'd be perfect for it would be Leah Remini.
Yes, she would be.
I wish someone should see. If they haven't done Audible, they should see about getting her to do it.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be great? That'd be awesome. I love her. Well, this has been fantastic, Ellen. Thanks for chatting with me again. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find out more about you and your books?
Yes, they can revisit cateringhallmysteries.com, ellenbyron.com. I have Facebook, Ellen Byron author, Maria DeRico author. So Instagram is actually just Cajun Country Mysteries, and Twitter is Ellen Byron LA. Although I don't do that much on Twitter. But Facebook's always a good place to find me. And of course, my website. Oh, sign up for my newsletter at either ellenbyron.com or cateringhallmysteries.com.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. We'll put links in the show notes to all of that. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. Oh, it's been great chatting with you, Ellen. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for listening. You can always find episode show notes and links to the books mentioned on the show at itsamysterypodcast.com. While you're there, you can also grab your copies of 2 free mystery novellas by me, Alexandra Amor. Until next time, happy reading!